Let's crack management exams. Join Unacademy, India's largest learning platform, and get the best possible learning material and learning resources to crack GMAT, CAT, and all other management exams. My name is Anand Venkatesan, and I'm an educator with Unacademy. Let me tell you briefly about myself. I did my engineering from VIT University and did my post-graduation from IIM Bangalore. After pursuing a successful management career with one of India's top FMCG firms, I switched over into the education sector, and for the past decade or so, I've been training students through a variety of exams. Thousands of students under my tutelage have gone into the IIMs, ISB, XLRI, FMS, IFT, and many other exams. I also help students through personality development, resume building, communication, and various other aspects that could help you land that dream career or dream job. Alright, enough about myself. Let me also tell you very quickly about the Unacademy platform. This lecture is presented to you by Unacademy, which is one of India's best learning platforms. On this platform, you get pretty much everything that you need to prepare for aptitude exams and in fact competitive exams of many types. Well, you can see the features on your screen. You have the platform allows you to attend daily classes live with the instructor-led sessions. It allows you to take tests and quizzes in the form of structured courses, and these structured courses can be accessed with you with unlimited access, right? Which basically means that there is no upper cap on how many sessions you can attend and how many times you can watch a particular lecture. Everything is unlimited. One of the main differentiators of Unacademy is that it brings together quality educators on the app, right? Obviously, I myself am an IIM Bangalore alumnus, and I teach on the app, and there are many others such as me on the educator platform, on the Unacademy platform. All us educators are subject matter experts who've been training students through these entrance exams for quite some time now, and not just having taken these exams ourselves, we also have trained students online for thousands of minutes. We've clocked thousands of minutes doing that. So I think we understand how to deliver lectures and courses online. On Unacademy, there are two kinds of offerings that you can probably consume. One of these is called special classes. Think of special classes like demo lectures, where you can attend a class on a particular topic or a few sessions to understand how the app works, how learning on the platform happens, how interaction with the educator is seamless on the platform, and so on and so forth. But once you decide, once you're impressed and you decide to enroll on the platform, to subscribe on the platform, you will be attending Plus. The offering that you'll be availing of is called Plus. Now, the Plus courses have distinct advantages, which is that A, there are many more lectures on Plus than in the form of special classes, and B, these courses are bundled. The educators are bundled together in the form of batches, and batches can be pretty much the difference between attending a few lectures but having a structured approach with a set objective, right? Thus, you could be somebody who's looking for aiming at next year's CAT and wants a basic course, something that allows you to work on your basics. And I think one of my Plus batches would be ideally suited for you, because I run a batch called Extreme Batch 2021, which basically has 3 IIM Bangalore grads who help students prepare for next year's CAT. There are many such batches that you can probably join, right? That's the distinct advantage of Plus. In order to avail of Plus, you need to subscribe. You need to avail of a subscription plan. You can see that subscription plans go from all the way from a single month to 12 months or 24 months, and the longer the subscription plan, my understanding is that it's going to be more advantageous for you as a student, as a learner, and I say that with a degree of confidence because I know that the CAT exam is only half the battle. Most of it is you still are competing with a very large bunch of competitive individuals in the PI stage, and I think at that stage you probably need to work on your resume, work on your statement of purpose, on crafting a good answer to why MBA, or even taking mock interviews or preparing for essay writing sessions, right? So that entire package comes to you if you prepare for a longer term and then don't just focus on the written test, right? So some food for thought for you there. And last but not the least, there is a 10% discount in case any of you join. There is a 10% discount if you use my referral code that's shown at the bottom of your screen, AB01. This gives you a straight off flat 10% discount on any course, any offering here that we've listed out. Alright, with that introduction, let's get into today's session. This is a session titled How to Build an Impactful Resume. I'm sure that if you're watching this session, you're probably somebody who's applying for a job or are applying to B schools or colleges and are eager to know how to impress people by way of your resume, right? Well, I should tell you, on the 2 years in a B school are pretty much geared around building a strong resume, because that's what you want to graduate with, a very strong statement that resume that sort of speaks volumes about your achievements and your life history. So let's get into this. Here's how I will tackle today's session. The agenda is, first we'll understand what the purpose of a resume is, right? Knowing or understanding the purpose of a battle is almost half the battle won. So we do that to begin with, and then that will help us identify a recommended approach, what to do in order to build a strong resume. This takes the form of multiple approaches, multiple tactics and strategies that you can possibly adopt. We'll also quickly take a look at how packaging can make the big difference between an ordinary resume and a really impressive resume. And I'll probably close with a quick sort of mention of the most salient sort of do's and don'ts, right? Things that you should keep in mind when you're building a resume for a job or for a application into a college, right? All right, let's get into it. We begin with the first part of today's agenda, which is the purpose. Yeah, a resume has a very clear defined purpose. And understanding that is probably going to be critical to your chances. Purin, we'll probably talk about why employers or colleges use a resume, right? And I think the major sort of reason is that employers or colleges use it as a selection process. Remember that when you take a CAT exam or a GMAT exam, the big contrast is that these exams tend to be elimination processes, because what they aim to do is to sort of sift the grain from the sand, right? Whereas a resume shortlist is actually a selection process, which means that in order to clear this round, you need to qualify, you need to prove to the shortlisting, the mentor who's shortlisting your resume, you need to prove that you stand out, right? So it's possibly a selection, which means as opposed to an elimination, which means that the whole purpose is to stand out, is to create an impact, is to sort of impress your audience, right? And obviously employers or colleges aim to get a peek into the candidate's motivations, right? What really do you stand for, right? How good is your time management? What is your prioritization? What do you consider as important from your life story, right? That's probably reflected in the manner in which you construct your resume. I know that most resume formats tend to be quite structured and tend to be quite monolithic. But then again, the manner in which you approach your resume could probably speak volumes to an employer or a college on what you really stand for, what really sort of impresses him or her. The third thing is, obviously, do you understand the role that you're applying for? Yeah, if you are applying for a job, then you need to understand the role that you're applying for, and what probably on your in your life history, in your professional or academic career, what what are all the things that you've done which could probably signal that you possess the needed attributes, right? That you fit the requirements of the role, right? So besides talking about yourself, you want to stay with, relevance. You want to talk about things that exactly that the school or the employer is exactly looking for. And lastly, remember, keep in mind that most of the times resumes are looked at by either HR professionals, and increasingly I think with technology there is a increasing role of artificial intelligence or machine learning, which means it's quite possible that the employer that that you're submitting your resume to will probably use software to quickly indicate a score for your resume, which means it pull out information from multiple fields and compare that with established benchmarks and throw up a resume score, and the resume score will probably be enough of a judgment on your candidature, right? So we're basically saying that it's probably in fact, think about it. Most times, even in the past, when computers were not around, softwares were not so advanced, employers or HR professionals would probably take seconds to sift through resumes, right? Which basically means that they literally spend maybe 2 to 5 seconds on your resume and then move on to the next one, right? That's pretty much the attention span. In fact, think of it like a pack of cards that you're quickly running them over, and anything that stands out is what you would assess any further, right? So try and make sure that try and understand that that's the philosophy, and even when machines or computers replace humans, it still is going to be dependent on impact and the manner in which you put forth your points and ideas that probably will make you stand out, right? I think the bottom line, I'm sure we understand why resumes are used. We understand how to make resumes. I'm sure if you speak to your seniors, there are formats that are floating around. They'll give you help on how to write good resumes. But I find that the best way of approaching resume making is to start thinking about a resume as a sales pitch. Let that sink in, right? It's a sales pitch. You're applying for a position in a college or in a university or in a company, and you need to make a strong case for your candidature, which basically means that it's a sales pitch. You're trying to use your resume as something that helps sell you better, right? And I think that's an approach that you guys should keep in mind, because I think all things begin with intent, and if you start approaching if you start looking at this resume as as part of your arsenal to prove your candidatures, then you probably will approach resume making a little differently, right? All right, let's see what I mean. So if we understand that a resume is nothing but a sales pitch, then that should probably tell me what is the ideal approach, right? Recommended steps to take in order to build the ideal, impactful resume, right? Because what's a resume if it doesn't stand out, if it doesn't create an impression, a positive, very positive impression on a prospective employer or a school or a college or a university? Impact is what we should be aiming for. So, think about what makes for a ideal sales pitch. Think about, ads that you see on television. Think about, advertisements that come about in newspapers, magazines, or even radio. The ideal sales pitch is one that begins with product attributes, right? No questions asked. An ideal sales pitch is one which focuses the audience's attention towards specific product attributes, right? And these product attributes need to be differentiable, right? It can't just be generic, right? I'm sure nobody remembers, a beverage that just says that we are a cola drink, right? But everybody remembers that, Mountain Dew stands for Dar ke aage jeet hai, right? So these are, specific product attributes, or for example, Sprite, which talks about प्यास बुझाए बाकी सब बकवास, right? So basically, every single beverage, every single product basically focuses the audience's attention to a specific or a set of specific product attributes. Then, having established what differentiates it, right? What is its unique selling proposition? What is known, in marketing parlance as a USP. Once it's established what its USP is, it then makes a very, very strong case about its USP, right? It tries to prove that here's my USP and let me tell you why it is so, right? And so let me back it up with evidence, right? Think about toothpaste ads, for example. It's very, very common to see, toothpaste ads using dentists in their, sales pitch, right? You have people, experts coming on in the advertisement and saying that it is certified by so and so, association. It is certified by so many doctors across the world, and that sort of lends credence to their idea, right, or their association or their uniqueness. And once you've established, credibility, right, besides talking about A, what is my unique selling proposition, B, how is it differentiable, how is it different from, other players in the market, C, we go out and prove that indeed, that is the way it is, right, and convince the customer and the consumer. The sales pitch isn't complete unless we package this very beautifully, right, and that's where sometimes you see that, in order to, in fact, the other thing that you notice is that sometimes, oftentimes advertisements tend to use celebrities, right? And why do they use celebrities? That's akin to, using a celebrity as an endorser, right? If so and so person, if Amitabh Bachchan comes on and recommends that I, play so and so game, or I wear so and so apparel, then, I think I would trust him, right? And that's why celebrity endorsements work. And in fact, celebrity endorsements in fact work for two reasons. One, that they tend to lend credibility, but two, they also have very, very high recall, right? You tend to remember advertisements which have celebrities because, those remain top of our mind, right? They appeal to our basic instincts, and so we tend to recall them much better. And that's what we need to construct into the resume, which should also be your ideal sales pitch, right? So we begin with A, defining what are your key product features, right? What do you as a candidate stand for? What are your product features? Obviously at this stage, every single feature that you define, you need to sort of vet it with regard to are these attributes or are these features useful to my employer, useful to the college that I'm applying to? Are they relevant or not? And second, but not the least, is the fact that are they differentiable? Is it something that everybody talks about, or is that something very, very specific to me? Very rarely do you find beverages talking about where they were manufactured, right? I mean, I'm sure that you don't remember where your Gillette braid was manufactured, but you do remember how many blades the razor has, right? You do remember how long it lasts, right? You do remember what is the fragrance associated with a particular soap or a particular shampoo, right? You do remember that it's an anti-dandruff shampoo or it's an oil related shampoo or whatnot, right? So you do tend to remember product features that are relevant to the usage, and you also tend to remember specific items with regard to specific product attributes, right? If we if we start thinking about Lux, then we tend to either associate them with celebrities or with particular attributes. Or if you remember Santoor, then it always talks about making women younger, look younger than because that's the way the advertisement works, right? Or if you remember Amul, then it's usually about Indianness. It's usually about having a little bit of humor packed behind it. But all good pitches will essentially establish product attributes in a manner which is engaging to the audience, but also prove relevance and differentiability, right? And that's what we need to establish even in your resume, right? What does a school or a college or an employer look for? And well, employers, if you're applying for an IT role, then they're probably looking at somebody who can code well, somebody who can understand what their team leader wants, what the client requires. And once you understand those needs, can you translate that into a code or a program that achieves their end objective, right? And more often than not, you want to still prove that you're better than anybody else who's applying for the same role, and so you want to spell out how that is so, right? So that's in one sense what I would compile under product feature. Similarly, if you're applying to, let's say, a college or a university, let's say you're applying for an MBA program at one of the IIMs or ISB, then what do B schools look for? Well, they look for candidates who have leadership potential, candidates who are versatile and multifaceted, candidates who are diligent and dedicated. Okay, so if I understand that these are attributes that colleges look for, I will make my pitch on similar lines. But then, am I going to say that I'm hardworking? Probably not, because everybody who's applying for a particular college is going to inherently say that they are hardworking, right? So, how do I prove that I am hardworking without stating so? How do I prove that I'm more hardworking or I'm better than other candidates in terms of leadership, in terms of diligence, in terms of initiative, in terms of team orientation, etc., etc., right? So that should be what occupies your mind space when you're building a strong, impactful resume. The next obviously stage is that once you understand a resume or a statement of purpose is always a process of self-introspection, right? Which is where you need to start considering what are the claims that I can make which will help advance my candidature based on the needed product features, right? How do I make claims that I'm good at academics? How do I make a claim that I have a large, very, very big claim of being a strong leader or showing leadership potential? How do I showcase to the interviewer that I'm somebody who regularly takes initiative, who regularly goes beyond the expectations of other team members and delivers something which is quality, of top-notch quality, right? So how do I do that? Well, all of these are by way of claims, right? And think about any popular advertisement that sticks with you, right? All you remember is that tagline, right? Dar ke aage jeet hai, right? You remember the tagline. You more often than not remember the tagline. And what is the tagline if it's not a claim, right? So you need to make a similar claim even in your resume, even in your CV. In fact, CV is different from a resume, so we'll stick to resumes here. So you need to make claims which are strong, which are differentiable, and which are relevant, right? And these must be based on the product features that companies or employers are looking for. But it's not enough to just make a claim. It's also important to back it up with evidence. We need to make sure that your resume is filled with points that make the needed claims. So when I start building my resume, I need to think about, okay, what do I stand for? What are the top 3 or 4 adjectives that define me, that differentiate me, that form my unique selling proposition? Am I a team leader? Am I a team player? Am I a leader? Am I somebody who's an enthusiast? Am I an extrovert? Am I filled with creativity, right? What exactly do I stand for, right? How do I differentiate myself? And then what sort of claims will I make, right? And once I decide on what claims I will make, I need to pack it with evidence that supports such claims on the resume, right? And last but not the least, once I have presented valid evidence, I need to package it well, right? No product is poorly packaged, right? Think about the advertisements that you see with regard to for example, Cred, the most recent product that I can think of that we see ads all over the television today. Cred is a service, and it's a financial service where you can add all your credit cards and then make credit payments through a common app, right? And if you remember that Cred packages itself very, it tries to play upon sophistication and simplicity even in the advertisement, right? By saying that, okay, we are not going to bring in a big celebrity to convince you. We will in fact be straightforward with you and say, download Cred, right? And make it very, very basic a claim, something that absolutely sticks to the main claim that we are trying to make. So and packaging, even in the advertisement, you can remember that the color tone that they use, it's black. tends to center around simplicity and the stating the obvious without any deviations, without any embellishments, and that's probably what tends to package it in a manner that displays best its product attributes, and that's what you want to do, right? Take a standard resume format but package it in a manner that appeals to anybody who looks at it. All right, so those are the ideal that's the ideal sales pitch, the components that make an ideal sales pitch. Let's talk about each one of these steps one at a time. First and foremost, we'll talk about product features and what claims should be made on a resume. Well, this one is quite easy, right? Obviously, there are very, very specific sections within a resume. A resume which misses one of these main sections is probably going to be incomplete. It has to talk about your academic background. No school, no college, no employer is going to hire you unless you showcase your academic performance, unless you showcase how you have explored the disciplines that you have studied at school or college, whether at undergrad, postgrad level, right? Next up is that what if you have indeed studied, did you have any specific direction about your career or your plans, and did you explore such options by way of internships or projects, right? Because projects and internships tend to indicate to the employer that you took very, very specific concrete steps to either explore or to evaluate available options and to arrive at a possible course of action, right? Internships do that. Internships also allow you to talk about your skills in a practical field of work, and because they're not theoretical, they're not academic, they're actually outcome driven, and so they can speak volumes about what your contribution was towards a project or a particular internship or a particular objective in an internship. I did say that most employers and in fact colleges tend to look for people who are potential leaders, right? The leaders of tomorrow. And so obviously leadership comes from holding specific positions of responsibilities at school, at college levels, at whether if you've interned, if you've done some projects, if you've worked in a particular company, then the positions that you hold in these in these institutions, whether voluntary, nominated or elected, these positions will really show how well you can manage other people, how well how much of a goal orientation you have, how well you can execute tasks, and how well you can delegate and get work, extract work from your teammates, right? So positions of responsibilities, or PORs as we understand them, are pretty critical. Similarly, to explore different facets of your personality, extracurricular activities become very important, right? Do you possess creative attributes? Are you good at theater, drama, music, dance? Do you have specific creative pursuits? And most people tend to think that such creative pursuits are useless to an employer, right? Why would somebody who's hiring me for a particular role in finance or consulting want to know if I sing well or not, right? I mean, what's the purpose? And you might think, but and this is usually a confusion that people have, and my simple answer to them is, well, A, how do you differentiate yourself if not on specific creative pursuits, and B, how do you show them that you have you take what is needed to develop your passions? Because if a creative pursuit is after all one of your many passions in life, and pursuing a job or pursuing a career or pursuing chasing a particular role might after all also be one of your passions, and if it is so, then the dedication and the manner in which you execute your passions or follow your chase your dreams could be as much evidenced from your academic performance as they could from your extracurricular pursuits, right? So But obviously not all extracurricular pursuits are creative. Some of them can actually signal your expertise in a particular specific discipline, right? Like for example, case studies or quizzes can probably showcase that you possess knowledge about specific domains, and possess specific skills that you have explored throughout life. The fact that you worked in societies, or the fact that you participated in competitions could possibly indicate your competitiveness, right? So these are other attributes that you could showcase by way of your extracurricular activities. For that reason, I believe that any resume that does not expand on each of these 5 areas is probably considered an incomplete one, right? Now that we know about what product features and what kind of claims we should be making on the resume, let's talk about how or in what format we can make claims and how to back it up with specific evidence. Thus, when we talk about academics and co-curricular pursuits, bear in mind that while the employer or the college is indeed looking at your grades, they actually are more interested in not just in how much of a high performer you were at one particular point, but they're actually looking at stitching together academic consistency, right? Most competitive internships or colleges or jobs tend to be given to people who are consistent, right? Which means that actually if you have performance which is consistent vis-a-vis performance that has distinction followed by dips in performance, then we'd probably prefer a consistent performer, right? So what that means is that if you have that opportunity, if you're studying in a school or a college right now, and you want to impress employers or colleges, then if possible, make sure that your academic performance is up to the mark. Because even if you in the past here's another sort of here's another advice that while academic consistency is indeed more important, take it with a pinch of salt, because end of the day it's a subjective process, and employers also tend to value deep distinction, which means that if you probably even if your academic performance is inconsistent, I think the most recent performance in a particular competitive exam could actually stand out, could actually make a very favorable impression, and could actually force him or her to consider your candidature seriously, right? So if you feel that your resume will be weak because of your class 12th scores or because of your college performance, first consider retaking some of these exams, right? Taking improvement papers. I've regularly counseled students in their second year to retake some of their first year exams, so that by the time they apply to a college or a employer, their academic score actually increase. But if you find that that's hard to do, or you've already graduated, then can you add more data points on academics, like competitive exams, even professional courses like a CFA or a CACPT, because these could indicate the fact that you can indeed obviously consider relevance, because there's no point if you're applying for a program in marketing to be showcasing your performance in the CFA exam, right? That basically has no bearing or no relevance to the employer or the college. But as much as possible, I think you can showcase, if not consistency, at least distinction, even though colleges and companies do value consistent performance. Secondly, when talking about internships, understand that your employer and even colleges that you're applying to know that if you're in India, if you've pursued your education in India, then internships in India are actually quite informal, right? There's no formal structure in place. Companies tend to be quite non-serious about it, and this is something that employers and colleges and professors do know. However, internships still hold a very very high place in the mind of somebody who's looking at your CV, because a what do employers look for in terms of internships? Well, most of the time they look at whether you've done a formal internship or whether you've just worked informally with friends, relatives, or your dad or your mom, because that could just be all the difference between creating value and just being being like a point with very little impact, right? So anything done formally with a company or with an organization where you have no bearing, where you have no relationship, is probably preferable. I don't mean to say if you have a family business, do not intern with it, but do not restrict yourself to merely your family business, is all I'm trying to say. Similarly, I think there needs to be a balance in your resume when it comes to internships. There needs to be a balance between working with popular big brands, recognizable brands and companies, but also with regard to the nature of work, nature of your internship. Because if you ask me, employers or colleges prefer candidates who've done something interesting rather than worked with a big company, right? Sure, I mean, if you work with one of the top consulting firms or one international bank, then that's going to stand out. But what's going to stand out even more is if you worked with a relatively smaller company, relatively unknown brand, but did something remarkable with them, right? And remember, since internships are informal, I think this point probably has importance to you even if you're considering doing internships at some point this year or the next, because the thought process here is do as many internships as you can, because that way you can create a balance between formal, informal, brands and work profiles or roles, but you can also explore different domains of work, like you could probably consider working with banks, doing some business development work, working with an HR firm, working with hiring, maybe working on due diligence and accounting, right? These are multiple options that you can explore. So try and make sure that your resume is not very unidimensional, and so explore different ideas for internships, right? Okay, the last 3 points, it's quite obvious what kind of claims you must be making when it comes to projects. I think the preference should be to go beyond the mandatory projects that your course or your graduation demands. Go beyond that. Talk about projects that you volunteered for, projects that you did for either clubs or societies or international societies, national and international societies, or even with NGOs where you researched or you worked as a volunteer, right? So such projects or such engagements are probably given more value. Similarly, when it comes to positions of responsibility, well, I think distinction can be made here between people who currently are studying and hence can change, can probably add a particular position of responsibility, versus those who have already graduated and hence can really not do much about it. But if you can, then I would suggest that evaluate within your college ecosystem which clubs, which societies have more importance, are given more importance even within your ecosystem, and you'll find that that sort of remains a constant, right? Most colleges, most college ecosystems tend to attach a lot more importance to members of their placement committee, and in fact being a president of the placement committee is probably very very prestigious and very very hard to come by, right? What comes next? Is it the president of the student body? Is it going to be captain of the sports team? Is it going to be head of the cultural committee in your college, right? Think about what kind of roles are on offer, and pick up positions that, or choose positions, or at least compete for these positions that could really create a large impact, right? As an example, I know for a fact that when McKinsey evaluates, we're talking about the world's biggest consulting firm, when McKinsey evaluates resumes from even B schools, anybody who's held the role of a position of a president of the college is automatically shortlisted, right? They don't care about your academic performance, they don't care about whether you are exceedingly smart or not, but if you've been the college president, then I think you deserve an interview call, right? And that's the kind of power that a position of responsibility has. So make sure that you choose wisely and you compete, right? Don't leave any stone unearthed. If you can probably fight to become president, you should. Similarly, when it comes to extracurricular activities, I think the way to evaluate which activities are better is to think about, did you organize anything versus did you participate in a particular event? Did you win it, or did you participate in it? In fact, even when it comes to positions of responsibility, there's a very clear established hierarchy. All roles where you were elected into are probably going to be given more importance versus roles where you were nominated by your teachers or your faculty members would be considered less important, and roles where you volunteered will probably be given less importance from a standpoint of a position of responsibility, right? Because if you're elected, then clearly the reward is for the fact that people chose you, and so they must see something in you which must be given importance, right? And that's the way that if you've organized a particular activity, then there is plenty that goes into planning, breaking it down into multiple components and executing these tasks, even probably working with multiple teams or team members and collaborating with them, and probably even working under strict deadlines and work pressure, right? So probably organizing is more important. Similarly, winning is considered more important purely because it's just more competitive, isn't it? It shows that I know for a fact, I know some students who took my word of advice and started participating in business case contests, and obviously the first few contests that this candidate participated in were a disaster. And indeed that is so, right? If you tomorrow if you start attending quizzes, then I doubt if you're going to start by winning, right? But if you keep at it as this candidate did, then by the time you get into your 15th or 20th quiz or 20th, in the specific example that I was giving, by the time the candidate got into his 20th case study, he had received so much feedback, and the business case had gone through so many iterations, the idea has gone through, and the execution of the business plan had gone through so many iterations that eventually he did manage to win. And once you start winning, it becomes a habit, right? And so the fact that winning isn't easy is something that all employers and colleges do recognize, and so they will give it more importance, as opposed to I participated in a mathematics Olympiad, not a big deal because thousands participate, but did you distinguish yourself? Did you win at a particular level, whether it was your college or your university or the district or the state or even at the national level, right? So winning earns you more brownie points. The next, once now that we've understood what all claims to make and how to evidence such claims, right? What kind of evidence is probably considered more compelling to an employer or a college? Let's also focus on packaging. Look at this resume, right? In fact, in colleges and schools, and even with some particular companies or sectors, these kind of resumes are pretty standard, pretty par for the course, right? It does look fine, doesn't it? We've listed out distinct boxes, distinct sections where college, institutions and your academics are written in bullets, right? But this is considered a poor resume for many reasons. The boxes themselves look obnoxious, right? I doubt if you can impress anybody with this kind of a box. It also tells me that you did not care about impressing me, right? That you spent very little time in packaging this, and so if you don't care for your product, then why should I? And the second reason why I believe this is not a good resume format is, you probably should consider this on any format, is how much empty space does it have, right? How productive is your resume, right? If there are many blank spaces, as you can see here, this entire region over here is left blank, right? So is this one, right? In fact, so are these spots which are entirely blank, right? Why do we have so much blank space? Why do you have so much white space on your resume? Indeed, if it is so, then I probably should believe that you don't have much to say, and so your resume is probably not going to impress me as much, right? So two good ways of evaluating your packaging: A, is it nice? Does it leave a good impression on my mind in terms of the way it's presented? B, or number two, is it does it make optimal utilization of the space on your resume? Because remember, resumes, by the way, if you don't already know, an ideal resume should be 1 page long. When you're applying for a job, when you're applying to a college, anything beyond a single page is superfluous, right? It's a waste of my time and yours. So if you can't fit your life story in 1 page, then you're doing a bad job of it. And if you can't fill even a single page with your life story, you probably haven't done enough, or you haven't thought hard enough, right? So that's the impression that you're going to leave the college or the employer. And now contrast that with this resume format, right? Again, we're still making individual sections in the resume, right? I know it's very, very small and very, very small to read, but I hope that you can still make out the major sections herein, right? You can see education right on top, followed by, the order is important. Next section is internship. There's a clear box that sort of differentiates this section from the next one. We're titling each internship with the name, and probably also include the duration of the internship right on top, and following up with individual details, and you can see, while it still is a resume that we can improve, because you can see that there are some white spaces on even this resume, these regions, so it can still be improved, but it's still a much better format when compared to the previous one, right? So learn to package it well. I'd still probably talk about using other colors on this resume. You don't have to make it very, very bright, because it should be professional, and by all means, and anything professional from a work corporate standpoint should not be loud, should not be flashy, should be subtle and quaint, right? So learn to package it well. Look at, there are thousands of resume formats available online. Evaluate one that appeals to you but is professional nonetheless, and when you're building your resume on that format, make sure that it has the least amount of blank space on the resume. All right, and to some most important do's and don'ts, right? Well, the most important pointer is that at all points be professional, right? I've given you an example for, remember, your mail address is going to be the first thing on the top of your resume, right? Or maybe in your covering letter, and any mail address that looks like this, right? dashandspunk@gmail.com. If you get a job or an internship with this email address, then you're better off staying away from that company, because clearly they're not professional, right? And any company worth its salt, any HR professional worth its salt is going to ignore you if you have, an email address that looks like this. Similarly, resume formats which are flashy, which are loud, which are written in big letters, are probably going to be considered unprofessional, right? So make sure that you be professional at every aspect of the resume, without any exceptions. The second most important thing is that, since we're going for impact on the resume, you must evaluate your resume for impact or power words. In fact, at the start of this lecture, I did talk about some machine learning or softwares that give out a resume rating, and lo and behold, even these resume softwares and even these machine learning, ML based softwares tend to assign importance to power words, right? What do I mean? To say that I set up a particular club, society or event is all right, but to say that I conceptualized a particular idea or that I executed something at scale is just going to sound more impactful, right? So when I talk about using power words, I am referring to adjectives, because these will always talk about the manner in which you did the job as opposed to just the job itself, right? So focus on adjectives which are strong, which are impactful, and make sure that you start every single bullet with a power word, right? I mean, if you're looking at a one-pager resume with 4 or 5 sections, then every section should have at least 1 or 2 power words. And if you're not doing that, then you're not going to form a favorable impression upon the HR or the admissions committee of the school or college that you're applying to, right? Similarly, right, make sure that you fill out a page, right? It should be one full page, not 3 quarters, not a page and some, not a page and a quarter. It has to be within one full page. It has to be formatted very nicely. It has to be formatted in a manner that it leaves very little white space, but at the same time is neat and doesn't look clustered, doesn't look very noisy, and doesn't remind me of chaos. It should be clear and professional, right? So ideal length 1 page, but here is something that a lot of people, this is one of the biggest don'ts that I have on in terms of pointers, is that a lot of people tend to start their resume with an objective on top, right? I find that most objectives are boring and very open-ended, and in fact global, and really add very little value, right? To say that I am looking for a role or an organization that will further my career is so superfluous. Why do you need it at all, right? Why do you need to tell the college or the employer that you're looking to pursue a career that will allow you to make decisions in an impactful manner? Yeah, I find that objectives are useless. So by all means, get rid of the objective. It in fact gives you more space to include some power words and include some claims and allow you to back up your claims with more evidence. That's probably more impressive than an object. I mean, rarely will you be shortlisted because you have a very nice objective, but you're probably giving yourself a better shot of selection if you include more power words, if you include more evidence to back up your claims. Similarly, if you are considering including hobbies or other such pursuits in your resume, avoid doing so, because rarely ever is a candidate selected because he or she likes reading or he or she likes collecting stamps or playing chess. It's probably not a reason to select you. It could become a talking point in an interview, sure, but if you can avoid doing including that and instead include something which is more relevant to your candidature, to the particular role that you're applying to, then do so by all means, right? If you can, if you have better things to put, then avoid including a hobby or two. But if you're really running out of space, then maybe consider including a hobby or a creative pursuit. And lastly, I think this comes under being professional, but I will still point it out. Avoid using fancy language when it comes to applications to schools or even resumes, because the simpler your vocabulary is, the simpler your sentence construction is, the plainer you speak, the better the impression you will form, right? Unless you're applying for the post of, being a literature professor, you don't need to sound high. Don't need to sound like Shashi Tharoor. You need to sound normal, right? But similarly, avoid using personal pronouns like I, you. It's always a bad idea because you don't want to sound vain. You don't want to take credit for every single pursuit of yours. In fact, that's also going to be a waste of space on the resume, because the person looking at your resume surely knows that these are things that you did, right? So why use personal pronouns? Remember that you're putting bullets on your resume. You're not actually trying to make out complete sentences. So you don't need to use names or personal pronouns. You can directly start with the verbs or the adjectives that describe the role or your contribution to a particular organization or society, right? So don't use fancy fonts and avoid the use of personal pronouns, because this will allow you to be professional, right? All right, with that I come to the end of this session, right? I hope that there was enough in this lecture to leave you with some pointers to create an impactful resume. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section. I'd be very glad to help you out any further. Since the session was brought to you by Unacademy, a lot more such discussions happen on the platform, so do join me on the Unacademy. Do download the app today and try and watch some of my free sessions there. It comes to you with no cost attached, but there is plenty to gain in terms of either preparation strategies or even other such gyan. Well, the Unacademy app allows you flexibility. Sure, we're watching this in English, but on the app you can probably learn in vernacular languages and even regional languages. You can choose to be flexible with regard to the kind of device that you're using or the time that you access the classes. The app is brilliant because I think it's centered around learners and educators, and so interactivity is the key here. It allows for two-way communication, which means that you get to ask questions of the educator and he or she will make sure that you get a response. Similarly, the educator can ask you questions in the form of polls that you will answer, and so feedback flows both ways, and so it allows for the lecture to be maintaining this fine balance of pace in the lecture, but also ensuring that the learner understands and gets the most out of the session, right? But obviously, besides just interacting with educators, it also allows you to take tests and quizzes to practice and gauge your performance and identify your strengths and weaknesses, and also download a lot of the learning material. In fact, every lecture that you attend on Plus, you can download the PDF of that lecture, and that probably forms your notes for revision at later points. Here's a quick look again at the subscription plans. I will not repeat myself, but I will talk about the value for money that comes with longer term plans. You can see that the per month cost starts at 3,000 rupees, but then if you consider the longer term program, which spans 24 months, it's under 1,000 rupees per month, right? And at this point it probably competes with the subscription plans that you have for the OTT content that you're devouring every month, right? You probably spend more every month on your Tata Sky or Dish TV connection than you would learning. So I think it's complete value for money, and this value that you get can increase even further if you use my referral code shown at the bottom. That's AV01. and this will give you a 10% off any subscription plan, whether it's a 1-month plan or a 24-month plan. You get a 10% discount if you use my referral code AB01. I hope you liked this session. Do share, like, and give me feedback in the comment section below. Well, the biggest endorsement would actually be if you would download the app. If you already have the app, do watch my lectures. My name is Anand Venkatesan. Find me on the list of educators on Unacademy and look at my previous lectures or attend an upcoming lecture. In fact, I have one coming up this weekend vis-a-vis the GMAT. So join me live if possible at 4:30 p.m. this weekend. Well, that's my time. I hope you have a great day and stay safe. I will catch you very, very soon. Together, we will crack all these management exams. Thank you and have a great day.